everybody been here before? How many is it the first time? Yes. That's great. And people who live in this part of the county are very happy that we're here. I don't have to drive as far. I'm Diane Habino. I'm the co-president of the League of Women Voters. My other half is right now enjoying a safari in South Africa, and she wishes she could be here, but maybe not. We're in our 100th anniversary year, and on Saturday, a bunch of us actually marched in our first parade. We dressed up as suffragists, we had a car, we had lots of fun, but we were also very, very cold. It was cold that day. But other than marching in parades and celebrating our 100th anniversary, which will be a gala event in April, we're working hard on other issues, including campaign finance. And I mention that only because every month we have a voter, and in the voter, the fact sheet is the topic of the month, and next month will be campaign finance. Also, coming up in January, there's a women's legislative briefing at the Universities of Shady Grove, actually sponsored by the Commission for Women, but we have a table there too. That's the last Sunday in January. And in February, we're holding a forum called Elections 2020, The Challenges Ahead. I'll just leave it like that. The challenges ahead for 2020, and that will be sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the National Capital Area based in DC. Finally, next month there is no trending topics. That's December because of the holidays. But in January, our next trending topic is going to be on the Northern Triangle. Does everybody know what are the countries in the Northern Triangle? Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. They're the countries that are sending a lot of migrants right now, and we're going to have a representative from American University's Center for Latin American and Latino Studies telling us a little bit about the conditions there, maybe some suggestions for change. Excuse me. We have 2020 calendars for sale. Everybody look back. They're only $8. Gretchen is holding them up. You can buy them for next year. They're special anniversary calendars. And I would like to have all of our members put your hands up, our members. So those of you who aren't members can look around, and if you have any questions about the league, you can ask any one of us. Okay, now for tonight's presentation. We have our own Elaine Apter. She's been a member of the league.
Diane, can
yes?
we ask people to turn their phones off, please?
Does somebody have his phone?
Yeah.
Yes, just ask people to turn their phones off.
Okay. Please turn off your phones. Thank you. Elaine's been a member of the League of Women Voters since 1974. She's moved around the country from New York to California to Florida, and lucky for us, to Montgomery County. She was co-president of the Maryland League and previously co-president of our league with me. Here is she. We were co-presidents together about 10 years ago. She currently serves on both the state and county league boards.
The most difficult of all in which we have to decide. So this wasn't a fly-by-night thing. They had just come off the monarchy and revolted from it. Alexander Hamilton, I love this one, said, "If the manner isn't perfect, at least it's excellent." So, so we had the Constitutional Convention of 1787. What was going on? What were some of the things that made it difficult to elect, choose a president? One, they had no faith in the electorate. And you have to realize who the electorate was. It was white male property owners, basically. That's it. And they still, the convention delegates had no faith in these people whatsoever. Okay, you again had the small states versus the large states. Virginia was going to overpower everybody, you know, little New Hampshire or Vermont. You had the slavery issue again, you know, the South versus the North as far as the population. There was also, these people were brilliant in their own way. They really feared the two-party system. There was nothing much they could do about it. We see how it developed. However, it was a big fear, and the fear was the parties would get so strong and be so divided that things would come to a halt. Okay, so what they did, the delegates at the convention, it got to the point where it was hot, they were tired, and they said, we don't want to deal with this anymore. They got a committee of 11 to deal with the types of programs that they could not decide on. And of course, one of the main ones was, how in the world are you going to elect the president? Another was taxation. That was a biggie that the committee of 11 dealt with. But we won't go there. Okay, what were their choices for electing the president? One was that you could do it by popular vote. They didn't like that. Why didn't they like that? Because if the population said, we want James Madison as president, he could get up there and say, wow, I don't care what Congress does. The Supreme Court was really nothing at that point, basically. But I don't care what Congress does. The people elected me president. We don't want that. We just came off a monarchy. We don't want that attitude. Okay, let's give it to Congress. Let's let Congress elect the president. Oh, no, that's not so good either. We don't want that. If Congress elects the president, who is the president beholden to? The members of Congress. Remember, we have this wonderful Constitution that sets up 3 branches, separation of powers, checks and balances. We do not want the president beholden to Congress. Okay, so they didn't like either one of those choices. What's the best solution? Well, we have this Electoral College. The eligible voters, they vote for Electoral College candidates. These candidates are going to know who the people running, the men running for president are. They're going to know their good sides, if they're honest, if they're capable, and everything. And they will then vote for who they feel is the best candidate. If there is no majority, if it's a tie, it goes to the House of Representatives. Why the House of Representatives and not the Senate? The House is the people's house. They're voted by the people in the local districts. They really felt that the House was, and you see that now in the Constitution as we're doing it. Okay, so what were the reasons for the decisions? Well, the compromise between big and small is the compromise of Congress. So the idea is that each state gets as many delegates as they have in the House and Senate combined. Okay? That gives each state at least 3 delegates. It helps the smaller states. And then it also includes that 3/5 in that compromise, so that helps the South. Okay, the other thing is those educated knew the best person. No direct election, again, they didn't trust the riffraff out there. And then it set up this wonderful electoral college, and each delegate had 2 votes. So that was their answer to this major problem. What I'd like to go now is to the Federalist Papers, which were the papers that gave the background and why this thing in the Constitution is there and the good points of it. And in federal paper number 68, and is that a hand? Did we get that as a handout? Well, you can look it up. It's no problem. This is the defense of the Electoral College. Basically, Hamilton wrote it. One, and I got those in red. We've talked about it. Not any pre-established body. That eliminates Congress. That's why that went. But men chosen by the people for a specific purpose. Congress did their work. These men were just going to choose the president. Also, men most capable of analyzing the qualities adapted to the station and acting under circumstances favorable to deliberation. Okay, so these people were the ones that knew the candidate they were going to select. Okay, and a small number of people would most likely possess the information to actually give us a good president. Okay, you have an anti-federalist paper. League always gives you two sides. Okay, and so did the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, and there it is in red and not black and white. The idea is it removes the ability of the people to select their leader instead of a few delegates, and that was the opposite side. Okay, what is the Electoral College now? It consists of 538 delegates. You need a majority of 270 to elect the president. And as we said before, the allotment for each state is equal to their membership in Congress. And on the 23rd Amendment, they actually gave the District of Columbia 3 electors. So, one of the things that is the most confusing was this little dilly. Okay? Lots and lots of Electoral College delegates as we got bigger and bigger. Oh, look at all the paper. These people don't know these people anyway. Let's make it easy. All as we have to do is put the candidate that is running for office on the ballot. And that's what we have now, the short ballot. We have, it was Trump and Hillary Clinton with their vice president. That's what you put an X next to or voted. But you really weren't voting for them. Behind the slate, lurking, is the names of the Electoral College delegates, and they are filed with the Secretary of State. And this is where the confusion comes if you don't have a good civic education program, right? This is where the confusion comes for many, many people. I think I am voting for John Jones, but I am not voting for John Jones. Okay, the Electoral College rules, it is definitely by state. They never meet as a group through the country. They only meet within their state, and this is very explicit, and there is a reason. Okay, you can't hold an elected office, and you cannot be an employee of the federal government. Those are outlawed. Okay, and the other thing is to minimize the risk of foreign machinations and inducements. This was on the mind in 1787, okay? The Electoral College members would have only a transient existence. Once the election is over and we have a president, the Electoral College disbands. And we do not get another electoral college until the next presidential election, just before the presidential election. Therefore, those people cannot be manipulated because people know that they're the ones that are going to be voting for the president. So they were pretty smart. What's interesting, as I said before, they were afraid of party domination. They didn't realize it would come so quickly, so soon, and so dominant. And it's true. Their idea was the delegates would be independent. They would look at the candidates. Small. They know the candidates. You're talking about a small population, 13 colonies. So they knew Jefferson and Burr and Adams, so they could do that. But like ideas do unite, and not everybody at the convention or following agreed with everyone else. In 1796, the Federalist and Republican parties were being organized, and a slate was formed. That's something they did not realize. That one ticket could do, they were going to form together so that one would be president and vice president selected. Okay, so there were problems from the beginning, as you can see. In the 1800 election, the parties did present a ticket. It was Jefferson Burr and Adams Pinckney, okay? The Jefferson Burr people had an idea that it was going to be a tie, because it was very, very close. So the story goes, and you can take it or leave it, it's one of these tales, but it is fun to tell, that they decided, the Jefferson Burr people supposedly decided that one person was not going to vote for Burr. He was either not going to vote or vote for Jefferson. Gives Jefferson presidency and Burr vice presidency. Well, the guy didn't do it. So you had a tie. Adams was out. He had 65. It went to, do you think our Congress is slow? It went to the House of Representatives, and each state had one vote. It took 3 weeks and 36 votes to declare Jefferson president and Burr vice president. And you can see 3 states actually split their votes, and this is going to come up later. So that became a problem, and it became a problem with the idea that, okay, now that we have 2 parties, what could happen? We could have a president from party A and a vice president from party B. That might not be the best for the country. So we get the 12th Amendment that split the Electoral College people still had 2 votes. One went for president, one went for the vice president. The president, with no majority in the Electoral College, if it's a tie, goes to the House. So they put the vice president over to the Senate, and they had to give qualifications for the vice president because at this point it's a separate office. So they weren't all running for president. They couldn't vote for 2 people from their home state. Now you have, again, you've got 13 or a small number of states. So like Virginia, a lot of people came from Virginia, New York, Pennsylvania. So they had to, if you had more than one candidate from your state, you had to vote for a candidate in another state. Okay, let's look at the difference now. Who chooses the delegates then and now? Okay, then they were chosen by the electorate. You, the men. The white men, how many, 4 or 5 people? You guys would be choosing, if you had property, you'd be choosing the delegates. Okay? The rest of us forget, we're nothing. Okay, now they're basically chosen by the political party in the background. Okay? Who makes the decision on how they vote? Supposedly, the independent I chose these men. They were going to select who they thought was the best person for the presidency. Now, of course, it's a result of state elections. So if Maryland goes Democratic, all the electoral votes go Democratic to the Democratic candidate. That will come up again. Okay, the states really have the power. Remember, this is a confederation of states, or a federation of states, basically. States' power comes into it all the time. On the Electoral College, the states do have the power on how the electors are chosen and how they're distributed. And that's going to be a biggie as we move forward. What were the concerns? What are the concerns now? One person, one vote. Is that still go? Does my vote really count? The swing states are getting all the attention. You got 4 swing states. How many candidates are going to come to Maryland? We're basically, supposedly a one-party state with no delegates. They don't care about us. So we just sit there and watch television or something. And I'm not even going to go into the media influence. It has changed completely throughout the times. We've spoken about this. You know more about it than I do. But, everybody's watching their little channel and Facebook and everything else, as opposed to when some of us, I was going to say many, I'll say some of us grew up, we had 3 channels, NBC, ABC, CBS, and the population basically got the same information, a little different. So those are all different. Okay, voice. Does my voice really count? Not only are we a small state and stuff, but this to me is very, very interesting. Originally, each House member represented the same amount of population. Reapportionment of 1929 stopped the House at 435 delegates. That really made a difference in the Electoral College because it's based on your congressional delegation, right? Look at California. One Electoral College, 551,000, I'll go that way, get one Electoral College vote. Let's go to Wyoming, 151,000, get one Electoral College vote. Okay, this of course could change after the 2020, but you can see what happened with the apportionment and how that really affects the Electoral College. Okay, some fun things. What happened? We're not the only interesting election. We talked about the 1800 election. In 1824, there were 4 candidates. None got a majority. Jackson had the largest amount of popular votes, but the House chose John Quincy Adams. 1876 was a mess, but it ended up going to a special election commission that gave Hayes the presidency. Tilden won the popular vote. 1888, Cleveland won popular, Harrison won Electoral College. 2000, we know, with Florida, put Bush into win the Electoral College, and he became president. And the last one, too, Hillary Clinton won popular vote, Trump won the presidency. And it's the winner take all is the biggie here. And this gives you just a small idea, but you're 1 over, so all the delegates go to blue. Here it's even 1 over, everything goes red. So at the end of this, basically you had 129 voters voting for blue, 118 voting for red, but the red candidate wins the election.
Could you please explain that again?
Okay, let's just take one state, State A, okay? If I am in State A and I win 51% of the votes, okay? all the Electoral College votes go to the candidate that won that 51%. So if you bring that into a few states and add the minorities, depending upon how the difference in the vote, you'll see that you can have a majority popular vote and a minority Electoral College vote because of the winner take all. Yeah, Barbara?
Doesn't Maine divide theirs by congressional?
No, there are two. Nebraska and
Minnesota.
I have that. Yeah, we'll get there because that's what we'll get your ahead. I do hit that. And here we are. Solution time. Congress has acted, people. Not acted. They have said this is a problem in the past. 1920, they had hearings on the Electoral College. In 1965, the House voted 338 to 7 to eliminate the Electoral College, and it failed in the Senate. In 1979, the senators came back, and 51 senators voted for it, but it needed 67. So it's not that it hasn't hit the Congress before. Okay, so how do we solve it? What are the solutions? Well, it is in the Constitution. So legally, what do you have to do? You have to amend the Constitution. If it's done by Congress, it has to pass at least 2/3 of the legislations, 2/3 of the House and Senate to go to the states, and then 3/5 of the states have to ratify. How long that takes? Think of the ERA. Or anything else. It's a long, long process. Okay, we can go another way. We can do Constitutional Convention. And if you think this is easy, I do a whole hour on this one. It comes from the state or Congress, and they're asking for a convention. The only thing I will tell, do we have the Minnesota thing? Did we do that? Oh, okay. The only thing I will say here is that the Constitution has had 2 paragraphs basically on amending on a constitutional convention. There are absolutely no guidelines. We've had 1 constitutional convention. What did we get? We got the Constitution. They threw out the whole Articles of the Confederation and got the Constitution. That's the only convention we've had. Okay, and what happens if we go to a popular vote? Just some of the things I'm going to throw out is, do you want first past the post, which means the candidate that gets the most votes wins? Or do you want a presidential candidate to need a majority of the voters to vote for them in order to become president? If you do, then you either get a runoff election or ranked choice voting, which is like you vote in your original ballot. You say, I want candidate A, first choice, B, second choice, and then they don't have to go back. And when we're finished, if you really want more information about that, any leaguer in this room can give you a whole talk on it. Okay,
May I ask, but what's the difference between who gets the most votes and who gets the majority?
Okay, you can win. Well, let's take the last election for county council.
You have to explain.
Elrich. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, if you have 5 candidates running, somebody can win with like 13-14% of the votes. It's divided. Okay, yeah. So that's a good question though. Welcome to Maryland. Okay, you say, oh, we really need a majority, and we probably do. Again, that's for you. But interestingly enough, these candidates won the Electoral College, but none of them had a majority of the voters vote for them. I just throw that in as a little side. Okay, this is probably the most interesting one. And this has probably gone further than anything else. I know many of you, I think, know about it, but basically, it's the National Popular Vote Compact. Maryland was the first state to sign out. It's a way to go around the Constitution and the Electoral College. It's the back door, okay? You need 270 delegates to get a majority of Electoral College votes. The compact says, okay, Maryland signed the compact. It says basically that when we get to this number of delegates, states that have this number of delegates, okay, Maryland will then send all its delegates to vote for the candidate that has the most votes, that won the popular election. Okay? Nationwide. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, nationwide. Yes.
This is the scheme that Common Cause is pushing, isn't it?
Yeah. So there are many people pushing it just because of if you want to eliminate the Electoral College, it takes so long. This is a backdoor, and it definitely is a backdoor. These are the states that already signed. As it said, they're up to 196. It does not go into effect until they get the states equaling 270 delegates. They don't want, nobody's going to sign if they're left out there in La La Land and they know that it's not going to win. Here I'm going to stop as far as questions because this really is something that is moving, and I want you to make sure that you understand what it is that they're trying to do. Yes?
I'm confused. If they reach 270, they have already declared president.
This is before. In other words, this compact will be in effect, and when the election, you have an election, okay? I win the majority vote, okay? Isn't that fun? Yeah. All Maryland's votes, no matter how Maryland voted, are going to come to me.
But this isn't votes, this is delegates.
The delegates' votes.
Yeah, so when they get 270, isn't that the president?
Yeah, and that's what they're trying to
No
do.
matter what Maryland does at that point, whether you vote here or there or not at all, they already got 270.
Now, Maryland is an important state. See, this is going to eliminate, a candidate might come to Maryland and say, you're part of the contract, we need you. Yeah, Diane.
So on election night, there's a popular vote account.
Right.
But the Electoral College does not meet until December.
Right, yeah.
correct? So at that point,
That's when,
when these
Right.
states in the compact
yeah.
can
I think that's a good point, is the Electoral College meets after the election in their own states, and then their vote goes to Congress, who verifies the election. So it would be between the election and the meeting of our state's Electoral College.
Where does Virginia stand in these ones that are enacted or are pending?
They have not, at this point, it is not pending. Now, I have to say, all 50 states, somewhere along the line, have brought this up, either through some kind of, not only legislation, but it has come up in all 50 states. Yes?
But the first time this effort is tried, someone will take this to the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's going around, yeah, that's,
So
and we'll get to that, because I'll do one more, because I'm going to give it to you guys pretty soon, because I've spoken up. Okay, the other is, and Barbara brought this up, is proportional voting. this does not need a constitutional amendment. It has to be done at the states. And basically, Maine and Nebraska have it already. So in other words, 2 at large, they would vote for the state's population. But now, the congressional district, we're 6th congressional district. If we vote Republican, then our delegate would go Republican. So it is not a winner-take-all, and this would definitely more closely align with the general election for president.
Going back to the winner take all.
Yeah.
How would that have affected the 2016 election? Trump got 270 electoral votes.
But he wouldn't have.
Okay, what would have changed?
What would have changed is any state that had Trump's electoral votes that were in the compact, those votes had to go to Hillary Clinton because she won the popular vote. She didn't
The
win.
popular vote everywhere.
Everywhere, the national popular vote. Yes, yes, yes.
Where are the protections for the really small states? Not Maryland, where they do come and ask for money. We forgot that. But,
It's talking about population.
Population, Wyoming, yeah,
Montana.
there are, yeah, there aren't any.
Yeah, now, if you think that they wouldn't visit Maryland, they would never get to Montana.
Yeah, and if you notice, Vermont, Rhode Island, Delaware, Connecticut, a lot of the small states,
California.
yeah, but the smaller states, but the western states are not. Okay, another thing, and this came up, and I wasn't that aware of it. This is a new slide because it's a new idea that's coming up. And that is, remember that proportional thing in the House of Representatives with stopping at 435 and it really messed everything up? Okay, one of the ideas is to increase the number of members in the House of Representatives. So,
Which would do what?
Yeah, where are you gonna put them?
well, now that's the idea, that's the idea. Logistics is up to you guys. Okay, I have spoken forever now. It's your turn. We have the Electoral College, we have the compact, we have increasing Congress, the House of Representatives, we have direct election. We do have alternatives. So now I would like to open it to you guys as far as what you would like to see happen, what you don't like, where to go from here. Yes.
Would you, we can't get our second mic to work.
Okay.
And so we're not going to be coming over to you so that
We can repeat, I'll stand here and repeat the question. Thank you.
If everyone
Yes.
would speak loud.
Yeah, I think that your hand was,
Thank you. I have 2 points. One is, in the this is kind of the elephant in the room, but in 2016, the Electoral College actually functioned the way it was supposed to function. Hillary Clinton won California by something over 4 million votes. She won the country as a whole by just under 3 million votes, which means that had California not been a state, Donald Trump would have won the presidency by something over 1 million votes popular.
oh,
And that is one of the points in the Electoral College, is that one state does not govern who wins the presidency.
Oh.
It needs to be spread around.
I,
That's one point.
okay.
The second point, I ran the numbers today because I didn't realize that you were going to cover it. But I ran the numbers today just out of curiosity on the issue of increasing the number of members of Congress and therefore the number of electoral votes. I won't go into my methodology, but basically what I discovered is that in doing that, the election results would have been exactly the same. And in fact, Donald Trump would have won by something over 100 electoral votes.
Oh,
Just a couple of
Okay,
points to
no.
put out there.
I appreciate that. One of the things that interests me in answer to that is that the original Electoral College people were not supposed to go with the popular vote. Either basically they didn't have to. You were not electing the president, the candidate. You were electing the Electoral College people. Then were to deliberate and come up with in each state who they felt the best person. Now we can't do that anymore because we're too big. We don't know that many people. You know, you have no idea who's on that Electoral College slate. So things really have changed. However, I understand California, but it's interesting to see. I still, and I'll be personal here. No matter what we do, I still think proportional. I still think I would feel very, very badly if 49% of my state voted one way and we didn't get one Electoral College vote. That's where I think the people say we don't have a say whatsoever. And now I've said my due, which I shouldn't have, but yes, Judy?
Yeah, I'd like to know, is there any other country that has this kind of system?
No, we are unique in this system. It was set up by the founding fathers, and as I said in my to me, that was the most important slide of all. This is one of the hardest things we had to do, is how to elect a president. Ralph?
Just a fun read that's a little snapshot of history. A book about the 1800 election, and the title is A Magnificent Catastrophe. And it's fascinating because things that we take for granted were not yet settled. Some states elected proportionately, others did winner take all. Thomas Jefferson had been an advocate of proportional representation. When he figured out that that meant Virginia would elect 2 Federalist electors, he changed his mind.
Yeah, I mean, I know I threw a lot of history at you, but we have to know where we're coming from, that this didn't come from out of the sky. There was a lot of deliberation on how, and they had a lot of fears. Marcia, did you? Yes.
How many electoral votes did Trump win by?
No, yeah, 270.
He reached the 270.
Okay,
Yeah.
and it's out of 500 and what?
435. 580, because Senate is in there. Yes.
Can you address the rural and urban vote in terms of the Electoral College? Because right now, my understanding is the Electoral College balances the rural vote more strongly and the urban vote more weakly.
You saw that, yeah. You saw that, that's the apportionment, basically. And you saw that with Wyoming, as far as the states go. I am not, is there anybody that is more comfortable answering that? I think more, again, when your population is spread out, you would say you have 1 or 2 Electoral College votes, whereas in heavy cities, you still have 2 or 3 maybe, and so you're definitely, the proportion is not equal.
I mentioned this earlier, and I ran some numbers this morning. And what I did is I took the population of the least populous state, which is Wyoming, and basically divided the country by the population, the total population of the country, which is roughly 324 million, by the population of Wyoming. And then got that proportion and then applied it to each of the states. So the states increased their numbers of, many of the states, not all of them, but many of the states increased the numbers of their total congressional delegation and therefore their electoral votes. We ended up, I don't remember the exact number, but it's something in the neighborhood of 500, 600 or so members of Congress, 570 or something. And so that is the way to try to even it out, is that each congressional district throughout the entire country has roughly the same number of people.
And that's
whereas
how,
now, as she pointed out in her graphic, in California,
That's
Each
how
one
it
is
started.
like 500,000 people. In Wyoming, it's
Right.
150 or something.
And our population
So-
is changing, yeah.
So I ran those
So-
numbers, and as I said earlier, Trump won the election anyway by.
Well, we're really not dealing, this election is past,
Well,
we're
I
looking
understand that.
forward, yeah.
I just feel like that's why a lot of
yes.
people are here.
Yeah, I have a friend who was an elector. And when they discuss this, there are places and there are individuals on record who did not vote with the rest of the electors.
Yes.
They didn't like the person, they knew it didn't make a difference. No one interviewed them for MSNBC or Fox News, so you don't know why. But theoretically, you can poke holes in this whole discussion if people aren't required to vote the way either the state or whatever the rules are.
They still have, and from the beginning, they were supposed to be independent, but there is tremendous pressure if you go against what your political party is. I don't think you'll be an elector next year, the next presidential election. But yeah, there is pressure, and that would be the key is if there wasn't pressure and people really voted who they felt was the best person. But that's, yeah, yes.
Do the persons who are the electors change?
Yes. It's, does the Electoral College change every election? Yes, and as we said, it is disbanded after the president is elected. And that was in the Constitution because they were really afraid of foreign machinations and things, because if they knew I was going to be responsible for one of the people to elect the president, I could come into all kinds of, people wanting to tell me what to do and which way to go. Yes.
But the electors could be electors again. They're not.
Yes, but it disbands.
And the college disbands.
Yes.
But are the same people electors
Yeah,
again?
they can be, but yeah, we're not sure. We have to check. Yeah. Do we have one over here? Yes.
There's something I really do not understand.
Sure.
You are saying that we are voting for the electorate.
That's right. The electors, a representative to the Electoral College.
How do we know who the electors are?
Where is that slide? Whoops. We got somebody. They are lurking behind. They're filed with the Secretary of State. And Ralph, can you go on the Board of Elections site and get their names?
The names are there, and I'm trying to remember how I found them, but
it's not easy to find.
Yeah, and that was your slide when you talked about the shift in 1796.
Yeah.
We finished electing George Washington. George Washington's the end of his term. Everybody agreed George Washington was going to be the first president. That was easy. But 1796, it's going to be somebody new, and that organization of the Federalist and Republican Democratic Party, that was when they picked candidates for elector who were pledged to John Adams. So just envision this. It used to be you might go in and write down somebody's name. Now they're coming around, they're recruiting, the candidate is recruiting people they're absolutely sure will vote for them no matter what. And they propose their name. And so when you go in your polling place, you see you're voting for electors pledged to Hillary Clinton, whoever. And they have been recruited by that candidate and
Or the party.
by the party. But the idea that electors are independent
is gone.
They were picked because they were loyal.
Yes. Yeah. And that's.
By 1796, we figured out how to manipulate the system.
Right. Yeah. It really is. And the thing was that the founding fathers saw this coming,
Yeah.
but they couldn't do anything about it. They were afraid of the political parties. They really were. Yes.
So is it correct to say then that the convention delegates we vote for on our ballot are the electors?
No, that's different. That's very different. We vote for those to go to the convention to select the candidate. Yeah. Yes.
So originally, these electors that were selected, picked, voted, whatever, were supposed to be independent-minded and vote for who they thought was the best candidate. Well, nowadays, it's dictated who they vote for.
Right.
So we could just pick 10 men off the street and send them in.
Yes.
Doesn't matter who they are. They could be,
Well, as long as the party, they have to give blood to the party and say, I will vote for.
But the pressure is on them to vote for.
No, there's no pressure on them at all.
Yeah, you said there was. You said there is. If they decide that they don't want
if they go against, is it 9:00? I have 6 minutes and 51 seconds. They can. They mark a ballot. At some point, somebody can be very independent and say, I'm sorry, I don't agree, this is a problem, I'm marking my ballot different. They still mark their own ballot, but as I said, forget them in the party anymore. But it has happened. Oh, definitely.
It's not a secret ballot?
Huh?
The electoral ballot, is it secret?
No. No, it's deliberate. Yes.
I just have to ask a stupid question.
No question is stupid, we know that.
I want a popular election. Is there any path by states, through Congress, through the judicial branch, state by state, to enact popular elections?
The closest is the back door with the national popular vote. This is the closest. It's the back doorway. You need enough states to sign the pact to get to 270. And they have said, if that happens, whoever wins the popular vote, all their delegates will go to that candidate, the national popular vote.
I'm not a real political person at meetings like this, but I've never seen this in the news or heard of it. This is the first time I've heard it.
That's why some people are very familiar with it, and that's why we bring it up as an alternative. And this is the closest so far we've come to going around the idea of a constitutional amendment. But this is it. They do have a website. They're very, very active.
What do we have to do to get the other 74?
What?
What do we have to do to get the other 74?
You have to, so first of all, I call people in these states down here, if you can see them, because that's where legislation is pending.
And that would be sufficient?
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
To bring up to the 70?
Okay, we haven't heard from them.
If they vote for it, we voted for it.
Wouldn't this compact be unconstitutional?
And that's what the first thing that is going to happen is that it's going to go to the courts. It's going to, yes, most definitely. On the other hand, if these delegates really are supposed to be independent, they should be able to vote for whoever they want to vote for. Yes.
I understand the obstacles in changing to the popular vote and getting rid of the Electoral College.
It's an option. Not everybody agrees with getting rid of it. Yeah.
Well, that's what I want to understand. What are the arguments for keeping the Electoral College?
Basically, that it's in the Constitution, and it's what they, and some people feel that that's the fairest way to do it, because again, if you have a popular vote, your big cities, and just like what happens in some of the states, your highly populated states are going to.
So is that the only one? So
Yeah, basically.
People from basically the two coasts end up having to go by what people in the middle of the country decide.
Basically, yeah, and that's what it is. Yeah. Diane?
But if we,
Okay, let's,
if we go back to a popular vote, doesn't each person's vote count?
Right.
It
Yes.
doesn't
But-
matter whether
right,
they're
right,
from a big city or a small.
right. Yes,
But if you go back to a popular vote, through a constitutional convention, all bets are off, everything is open.
yes.
You have no idea
No.
what the crazy people.
Congress, but it has, yeah, and I will tell you, we're now towards the end. The League of Women Voters is absolutely against the Constitutional Convention. However, Congress, and you saw, they came close a few times. Congress can bring it up. And if it's past Congress, it gets ratified by 3/5 states? Yeah. 3/5 of the states.
It's 2/3 of the House.
No, the actual, not the amendment change in the amendment to the Constitution can pass Congress and then go to the states. And it came close a few times. So that is a way to pressure Congress too. Yes.
One problem I see with this, or just direct popular vote, is we've already seen that a lot of states have gone to great lengths to disenfranchise voters that they don't want. And I think if we go to a straight popular vote, there will be tremendous pressure put on those states to do that even more and make it harder and harder for people to vote that they don't like.
Okay, good comment. I don't know if everybody heard, but the comment was if we go to a national popular vote, you're probably going to get more voter suppression than we have now, trying to keep people that they don't want to vote away from the polls. It's excellent comment. Did you have a comment, sir?
Oh, there was a slide where the lady said, I don't understand it, please explain. I have the same problem, and your re-explanation didn't quite.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Okay, here's the slide. Okay, here basically each row is would be a state, really, basically. Okay, so like here, there are 5 extra votes for the red, but every Electoral College vote is red. Okay, here there are only 2 extra for the blue, but all the Electoral College votes go to blue. And that's what's happening now in all states but 2. So what happens is you can get a total like this, but the Electoral College will not match. And that's what happens in the elections where they win the Electoral College but don't win the popular vote, like the last election. And there are elections before. Okay, any other? Yes.
Do you think that the division in the country now with extreme partisanship would make a difference in how this issue is seen by Congress and by the voters?
And the voters, I think the voters are very alert to this issue. As I said, when I did this at Oasis, it was sold out. And look at the people here. It is something that we really need to talk about. And I think one of the main reasons is people really don't understand from that short ballot when they say they're voting, they think they're voting directly for a president and vice president that they are not. Yeah.
Are you doing anything with public school students, because their civic education certainly doesn't explain.
We just had a study on this because it has really bothered us. And truthfully, if you look at any news person, even Congress, elected people, any of them, the one thing that they go back to that is the problem with this country is our civic education.
When is the League of Women Voters taking this show on the road?
I won't say anything about Montgomery County because Montgomery County is a challenge. It is. Yes.
Let me give you an experience. I tutored some people who were trying to get their citizenship, and they had to go through a civics course and learn about the United States. They probably know more about the system than high school students.
Yes. But that's a whole other ballgame. We'll come back. Do we have, how are we doing time-wise? I have timer done. I think I'm being kicked out. What?
Last question.
Yes.
I have one comment. When you think about voter suppression, that's been going on for a long time.
Yes.
And my response to you would be that I think we would just galvanize more to avoid that. I think there would just be
I think that's a great comment to end with. Any other? Okay, well, you are a great audience. We thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elaine. This was terrific. Is this working?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to yell anyway. One of the things I love about being a member of the League is the expertise that its members bring, and Elaine is one example of that, and an outstanding example. But the League is just full of members with expertise in so many different areas that they're willing to share. And it's one of the things that I love most about the League. I will remind you in closing comments that in 2020, you've got 3 things to do. You have to do the census in April, you have to do the primary in April, and general election in November. Those are the 3 things. If you do nothing else next year, you need to do that. Get your friends and take your friends. Take a friend. We want to thank Elaine for her time tonight and all the I can play poker. They're League playing cards. Bridge. Okay, bridge. Okay, well, Richard, what have you done?
We have a print out here of the lead position on the Electoral College,
Yes.
and you're welcome to it if you're interested. It's a summary sort of why we want to abolish it.
And we do have a speakers bureau that has some of these things that we will come out to your organization to talk about it. So contact them. We'd love to keep going.
Who would we
dialogue
contact?
to keep going. Do we have some? The League address is there a phone number on there?
11 to 1.
Contact the League office.
Go to the website.
It's on the calendar,
website.
you can buy a calendar.
The League website is it
It's LWVMOCOMD.org.